Like,
hello, everybody. Welcome to Truth Proof. How you doing, Les? You all right?
yeah, not too bad. Dealing with life's crap, what throws at you, but we're getting there.
That's a lovely start. Life's crap. Yeah, we've had a bit of that today, to be honest, and it's been full on. And then kind of last minute people, as you probably know, our guest unfortunately can't be with us. However, you've got me and Les for at least an hour. We've got a little bit prepared, a little bit of backup, but we didn't think we'd need anything. So you've got me and Les for an hour. So we would value a few questions just to stimulate the old grey matter. If you want to put some in chat, and that would be appreciated. And I hope you guys have had a good week.
And if anybody mentions or can see in the stream that I've got a red blood vessel at the end of my nose, nobody's punched me today. I can guarantee that. So I don't know what's going on there. There it is. Can feel it. I can feel it. Yeah.
Well, you don't even you don't drink alcohol or oat, really, do you?
No, you think I'd had my nose in a glass for the last 25 years, but I haven't.
yeah. Well, you haven't, have you? I can vouch for that one. But no. So it'll either turn out to be a bit of a flat one tonight, or it'll be really buoyant. Let's hope it's a buoyant one. So let's just have a look in this chat. I see Alison's in. Thanks for moderating, Alison. I think Lee's in, but I can't see his name there at the moment. So Disabled Welshman, Linny, Dragonborn, Jack, Denise Fox, Hartley. Let's have a look. Karen Beerman. A Bearman, how's it a beer? Why would I say that? Jojo, Simon Riley, Stargaze Returnal, NN Grandma, Mrs. Linny, Mia Girl. Let's have a look. Tetrastatic. And, we're up to 100 people just about already. So thanks, guys, because, as I say, I was looking forward to this guest. So I am definitely going to rebook him, or I should say we are, because basically he's had his own encounter with something in a forest in America that's frightened him to death, put him off what he used to do as regards hunting and things. And I know some people frown on it, but there you go. That's what he used to do, and it kept him out of forest for over 3 years. Dare to dream. Go on, Les.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say at this point, if anybody's actually, because when people ask us questions and we sometimes don't know about the account or the situation that the news report came from, so if anybody's got any up-to-date news from around the world that we don't normally see, please put it in the chat.
Which would probably be about right, because I won't see if I hardly look at any of this. So we've got Simon Riley. Let's just do a little bit more. We've got Studio 211, so that's Andy, and we've done Dare to Dream. And let's have a look. Yeah, we're just about there. I know I've missed loads of people. Mike Disabled Welshman, Tino's there, I see, and loads of names will come up. Tony D. Wait, we've got a question already, but no, I've got a few emails that I'm going to read out today and just covered only 3 or 4, and hoping that's going to just ride us through for an hour and stimulate a bit of interest. And one of them I've probably covered before, but it's got an interesting picture. So where do you want to go with this, Les?
Well, we'll start off, I think, I did jot something down here. Is it the Bempton? You got a short report from Bempton there?
It is a short report, and it's not one that I've even told Linear lads, because, as I say, it's only just come in, and this is from last week, last Saturday. And just a couple that have gone to Bempton Cliffs Saturday evening, around dusk, and they're on the big lookout at the top at Bempton. And people familiar with the area will know where it is, and there's loads of birds stands.
Is this the one where you turn left at the end of the pathway?
You'd turn left at end, and you'd go up the path to this big lookout there. And it just sounds like they're having a weekend or 3 or 4 days away. Mm-hmm. And they said there's a strong wind, there's a brisk wind, in his words, blowing, and it's blowing off the sea. He said, and then he just became aware of a black mist. Caught it in his peripheral vision, corner of his eye, a black mist. It's not nighttime, it's dusk. We're not completely dark. And when he looked directly at it, he realized it really wasn't a mist. It were more like thousands and thousands of tiny black dots. Now, before you say it, guys, this guy were on it as well. He says, I thought, is it a swarm of flies? You know, but then he sort of dropped that idea and just didn't think it were at all. He says it were about 10 to 15 foot off ground, 20 foot in diameter, and it were close, you know, when they actually, and it weren't like a let's look at this and watch it for 5 minutes. And it travelled seawards against the wind. So just a short sighting, but once again, it could be natural phenomena. You know, not everything has to be something unexplained, but it's come from the location. It's come from the land of strangeness where lots of weird stuff happens. So this guy's been kind enough, well, this couple, to report that to me. And one interesting sort of add-on to it is they said they both had the exact same phones. Both charged their phones before they went anywhere, 100% less. I might have got one wrong way around, but the combination is that either his phone went completely flat and hers had 65% or other way around. And that's not happened before. And that's an interesting one.
Yeah, I mean, the phones discharging, batteries discharging, that sort of correlates with some of the incidents that have happened in previous, either with you or other people up there, Paul.
Absolutely. You know, I said it before, but Andrew Collins, people who watch History Channel and watch Ancient Aliens, he's been up there several times. And on one occasions, Andrew came up with us and he set loads of recording gear up and sort of EMF type stuff. And it did all discharge. I was there. You know, it got no charge in any of his equipment. It just literally drained. We've had it, but not to that extent that Andrew got it that particular night. But I don't know whether I don't know whether he's just saying he charged it and he hadn't. But there were about 6 pieces of equipment that discharged. And because I laughed to myself, didn't I, about Andrew? He sat with a bottle of wine and some cheese and crackers, and he were going to stay for night after we left, but. Yeah, I think he caught us up halfway up path. He didn't, but he were there not long after. He didn't like the feel of it. So
and another incident, Jerry, who was a cameraman, a friend of yours, and he brought his big camera and he did his battery drain while he was trying to do some filming.
Jerry Denning, his battery drain. So it has happened, and I think it's happened to a few people. It's happened to us, but not to that extent.
Well, that was my next question, because I don't know. Some nights there's 5 or 6 years, maybe a little bit more, 7, 8. Has any of the batteries from the devices that you've took up there drained?
Yeah, it's happened, Les. Yeah, and myself, but as I say, not to the extent that Andrew suffered it. And I tell you one interesting one, and it's probably in chat because Pete Masters, who was a mutual friend of myself and Les, and Pete's gonna be our technical guy in new documentary because he's you'd call him an electronics expert. He's not just somebody who's got a bit of knowledge about something and wants to be an expert. He really is. And Peter rigged an antenna up, omnidirectional. Yeah. And he brought a computer up, fully charged, new laptop. And when we got there, we were looking for this unusual signal, this 1.8 gigahertz. The computer just drained. Literally, there were nothing in it, and it were a new computer. It didn't drain from 100% to 0, but it went down to about 25%. Interestingly, though, how does this one work, people? We drove then to Speeton, and when we put it on again, it's back up at 96%. And if Peter's in chat, because I know you watch this, Peter, because you were going to come in tonight, simply because at one time Pete used to live pretty close to where this guest we were going to have on tonight, who we're going to talk about the Sasquatch. He used to live with some people in that location or around that location. He wanted to ask a few questions, so there's a chance Pete's on. So if you are, Pete, just tell us percentage that battery drained or appeared to drain and then came back to life, which don't make any sense, does it?
Well, the most fascinating thing, that's it. That's the fascinating part for me, is how did it recharge itself?
It can't, can it?
It
can't.
Surely
it's really. Oh, one thing, and Les doesn't know this yet. He's in. Do you know some things are by coincidence? And I can see a guy called Nick Asquith in the chat there, and I've just looked down, Nick. Seriously, and I was just about to I weren't going to mention your name. But on Sunday, we may be fortunate enough to talk to one of the witnesses from the Humby incident. So there you go. He's there in chat.
Wow.
And I'm looking forward to that. I mean, obviously, I've spoke to Nick loads of times, but I've been talking about Humby, and it's just me gassing on. And I asked him to come on tonight, and he told me he hadn't got time. And you sat there, Nick. Did just no, I'm joking. I know you were out relaxing, and it were a last minute thing after our guest had sort of given us the backword. So I don't want him on as just as a last resort, because what he's got to share is really interesting. Absolutely.
Okay.
What's he said actually about batteries draining? Let's just have a quick look. Where's he gone now?
Oh, I've just scrolled up somewhere.
Yeah, let's have a look. My battery died out completely when walking through St Oswald's Church in Farley a few years ago. What do you put that down to then, Nick? You know, because what a lot of people, well, nobody will know, but he's a really good photographer as well. I
mean, I'll play a little bit of devil's advocate here, because batteries, lithium batteries, especially NACADs even, they tend to discharge very quick when there's a big temperature change. You know, dropping in temperature. You know,
well, you do get fluctuations in temperature up on them cliff tops, don't you?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Whether that could account for any of the discharging, Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it'd be really a good bit of advice is to take a temperature, take the temperature, write the temperature down whenever these things occur.
That's a good point. But the day that Pete Masters' laptop decided it was going to drop in charge, the temperature didn't really alter, because, as I say, we were up on them cliff tops and we'd driven through them to Speeton. But no, fully charged, taking a few photos, he says. I'm just looking at that. He's not put it in caps. No, a normal day, then died. And I'm assuming that was a P1000, Nick, were it? Because I know that you use one of them. So, yeah, that's good. Excellent.
Yeah.
And interesting that St Oswald's Church in Filey, you know, is where I'll not say the man's name, although I've got full permission to say the man's name. I worked extensively on a case of a man that was found, obviously deceased, in St Oswald's Church in Filey. And I worked with his brother-in-law and his brother, because there were so many discrepancies in case. And the reopened case, the police reopened it. It were only to pacify us. They didn't reopen it with any intention, I don't think, of ever looking any deeper. It was just that we'd found so many discrepancies in this man's passing that they couldn't not open it. But what the interesting thing about this case, we aren't going into massive detail about it, and I don't think I'm prepared, as in not prepared. I haven't got any paperwork or dates with me today. It was 2010. But this man discharged himself from hospital, and they said he'd walked the full Cleveland way and ended up in St Oswald's Church, where he passed away, and which was untrue, because obviously they didn't know at the time, because they'd not done the due care and attention and put the work into it. The bride discovered that this man's bank account had been accessed in between times. So that couldn't have been true. But where it became a little bit of a paranormal element for me, because obviously we're a channel for unexplained phenomena, and this were real life, and it was a tragedy, obviously, is that his brother-in-law, Steve Wade, had a dream prior to this man going missing. Prior to him going missing, and actually told Jim's brother and wife, so he told the family, and he'd had this dream that he'd gone missing, and he was near a ravine should I say, and he was in the back of a car waving, and then he'd seen him being carried in what looked like a sleeping bag or something. He'd had this dream. Then in the dream, he'd seen him wearing a pink dress. Right? The man didn't wear dresses, by the way, but let's just get to it. When they found him, he was on where Nick's just said, St Oswald's Church, which is, I think they call it ravine. There's a word for it, but it's next to the ravine anyway. And there's a huge bridge going across the ravine. Everything in his dream seemed to ring true. And then when they went to look at Jim before he was buried, before he were interned, because this man had gone missing and he'd not got no clothes and everything, was partially dressed when they found him, the undertakers had put the male deceased in a blue robe and the females in a pink robe, and they'd only got a pink robe, and they put him one on. It looked like a pink dress. Right. Really interesting. I know we can sort of say, oh yeah, well, you're just clutching at straws, but there's much more to it. And it's like one of them, Les, that we could talk about, and you could open a folder and you could just literally go through it for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
But I'm not prepared for that today. It was just Nick mentioning St. Oswald's Church.
Just going back to the battery situation, and Robert Hilton makes a good point. But he's actually replying to Nick. I have a P1000 as well with one Nikon battery and 2 cheap Amazon batteries. The Amazon ones defo drain much faster. So that's another good point actually, because you can buy something off Amazon, even Amazon home makes Amazon basics, and they're just not as good as the original batteries.
Yeah, but it's just the Amazon ones drain faster. I have a P900, not used it for ages, but I know if I charge that battery, original battery, it'll work okay. And I think I've got a Duracell battery that fits it as well, and that's just as good. But anyway, battery.
Okay, let's see what I've got. Yeah, let's see what I've got in my little folder here. Okay, Tony D is asking, hi everyone, what are your guys' thoughts about the new revelations about the Great Pyramid being technologies as well as hydraulics and making fertilizer too? Well,
I hope you've asked that question expecting me to know that, because I really don't. Do you?
No, I don't know. I know the new revelations about the Great Pyramid underneath, where they've done the sound, what they call it, and discovered that there's probably, I don't know, hundreds of feet of
is this LiDAR? Have they done ground penetrating?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And there's about, I don't know, 100, 200
there's a lot
feet.
more below the pyramid, but I've no idea about the hydraulics and making.
So I don't know if anybody else knows in the chat. Just tell us.
I hope you're not winding us up, Tony D. Talking about fertilizers. It's not a load of bull, is it? This. No.
Okay, then Richard is asking. Then, has anybody heard about the silver sphere they found in Colombia? Only just happened. You all might see it within a few days. It was caught flying over the hills, but managed to catch it. Scientists have it. The silver sphere, yeah, I've seen that one. Is that the one with engravings and on the top, Paul? Are you seeing it?
It is. And when we were doing last transmission on Tuesday, he put a picture of it up. And is it that Jamie Masu? I may be pronouncing his name wrong. And I think in the past he's been involved in a few things. What he involved in the alien mummies, the little mummy type figures that were proved to be found out to be fakes afterwards.
Yeah.
They were made up of bones, weren't they? That were just sort of, I don't know, would say cobbled together, a bit like something from League of Gentlemen. Just, you know what I mean? But anyway, go on.
Yeah. So I don't know much about this, but I have seen the sphere. How did they manage to catch it, Paul? Do you know?
I've no idea. It'd be something like Harry Potter. It'll be one of them things they caught on. They've been flying around on one of them broomsticks. Yeah. No, I'm sorry for sounding a bit sarcastic, guys, but I don't know enough about it. And when I saw I was holding it, I kind of lost a bit of faith that we might be looking at the genuine article.
Yeah, and I thought, no way. No. That was just my gut feeling. No way. But there we go. What do I know? All right, then. Here's one more for you, Paul. Stephen, Colin, welcome to the stream.
No, nothing. I did. I forgot the guy's name, but you asked me. Somebody or a few people asked me to send it to Jeff Meldrum. Yeah, the guy who's into the prints and I don't know, the mitochondrial DNA and everything, and the print that I found. I did send an image of the print. Anybody that not seen the print, I've got it here. Here's one I made earlier. So that's the print.
Yeah.
In Dane's Dyke. Look at them toes. They're not my toes.
They're unbelievable. Yeah.
But no, I got nothing back. But in fairness to the man, I did also read that, I don't know, life presents a few problems. So maybe he's just not got round to it, you know?
Okay. And Richard says he doesn't know how they caught it. Laugh out loud.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Because I'll tell you what I did, Les, and we'll just touch on it again. And I'm sorry if you were in chat on Tuesday and we did talk about this, but it brought back memories for me of the Silpho saucer.
Yeah, that's exactly what it did for me, because we'd been working on that, Paul, and I know you'd worked on it in the past. Yeah,
myself and Les, when we were making Wolflands, we went up onto Silpho Moor, and we did quite a bit of filming, and during the course of that, I were talking about the Silpho saucer. And on Tuesday, I gave 2 dates, and I've not looked to see which one it is, but it was November 1954 or November 1957, when allegedly a tiny copper flying saucer fell from the sky on Silpho Moor. And I think it was found by 3 men who were walking. I think one of them was a solicitor. And I did a bit of digging and found an elderly solicitor who remembered the guy who was at one time in possession of it, but I couldn't get no closer. I wanted to know where it had gone, because allegedly, I don't know.
For those who don't know the story, Paul, was this, when we're talking about saucer, we're talking about something, was it about 12
18
inches?
inch.
18 inch, sorry, yeah. 18 inch in diameter.
And there was, in later years, and let's face it, guys, this could be, and potentially is, a fake. But in later years, it was said that it was made from a hot water cylinder. Can you imagine top?
Yeah.
But it was shaped like a saucer. We had some pictures of it, Les. I don't know where they are. Don't go looking for them now. But
you do that to me every week, Paul.
I know, but where it became interesting for me is that back in the day, and there were all paperwork to prove this, it was tested by the British Non-Ferrous Metals Association, metallurgists, and they found it to be of an extremely high purity of copper, which a lot higher than what you would get in a water cylinder or normal copper pipe. So that became interesting for me. And inside the saucer, they found some books with hundreds of symbols on them, which obviously you could get a punch and you could do all this if you'd got time to do it. So we're not discounting the fact that it could be a fake, but there were wafer thin pages of copper, and each page was 3 or 4 even thinner sheets that were somehow, they didn't know how they were laminated together. So I found that fascinating. So if it's a hoax, which I would say it is, there's some really clever people out there.
So these thinner sheets, then, did they actually, was the writing on these thinner sheets, Paul?
One sheet was extremely thin, but each sheet was made of 3 or 4 thinner sheets. And and this writing, these symbols, it weren't writing as such, were all on it. It's supposed to be a message to mankind. Anybody remotely interested, you'll find information about it on the net. The Silpho saucer, 54 or 57 November. I can't remember exact year.
Ian Linney, Paul Robert Williams has been asked to head Lee search with Mark Christopher Lee looking for UFOs in the Daily Star.
I've no idea, mate. Honestly, I didn't know that, Ian, and maybe so. I'll ask him. I'm off to see him soon, so I shall find out. That's not a joke, by the way. I am. But I knew nothing about that. I don't even know who Christopher Lee is. Was he a vampire?
Right, okay. We've got Studio 211. Louise's phone drained the last time we were up there with you.
Right, yeah, and that's in Dane's Dyke. That I kind of remember that. It's strange. I mean, I don't know what would. I don't know. I don't even know what kind of what phenomena would. I don't suppose we do. That's the reason it's unexplained, isn't it? You know, what would drain electrical items? And you could imagine as well, people who are sapped of energy and feeling exhausted. Like they talk about, we just touched on the word vampire, and I said it tongue in cheek, but you've got like emotional vampires, haven't you? You've got people that you can be around, and you don't have to be around them long. And I don't think they know they're doing it, and they drain you of energy. You know, you just come away feeling absolutely exhausted. How many people know that type of thing?
That was going to be one of my questions, because if you get into a situation where the batteries are draining, what type of emotional effects do people have at the time? Do they have any? Does it actually flow through them and affect them?
Well, there are these things, whatever it is, it's obviously able to interact and affect electrical items. And I'm hoping now that Nick's going to come on Sunday, because that's one of the things we'll touch on. Because as he knows at Humby, the radio, and he touches on this, it would change channels, become very loud, but in Nick's exact words, it would reach frequencies that radio couldn't actually reach.
Yeah.
And it's all right me saying these things. I love it when you actually get a witness who will stand there and back up what you've said, which is really good. So there were lots of strange things at Humby. The lights would go bright. I mean, Nick's dad and the other witness, Dave, said that the lights would trip at times, to the unit, but the radio would carry on playing. And bearing in mind the power's gone, it's not just a lighting circuit. It's impossible if it's plugged in. It shouldn't happen. So loads of strangeness.
Okay then. Lee Roscoe. Question: what are your thoughts on the landed spheres having the same properties as red Mercury?
You're asking me something here, Lee. You ought to be on here telling us about it. I don't know, mate.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You'll have to put a bit more info into the chat there, Lee. But I don't know anything about it, Paul. So. Right then, we'll get on with Auntie Mo. Hello, Les and Paul. I'd like to know what you think about remote viewing, and if you know if the areas you've investigated have ever been viewed.
I don't know if that anybody's ever tried remote viewing the areas. I know when we've done meditation in the areas, so some members of the groups that have been with us have had more success than others. It depends if anybody's in the group now who wants to comment on that or who's in chat. Thank you. And Coca-Cola. There you go. Oh, can I say that? Anyway, go on.
No, they're going to have to pay big money for that plug, Paul, on this show.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Right, do you want another question?
Yeah, go on then.
Right. Tim Terminator C, does Paul had any dreams, spontaneous recall about the incident encounter over the years? I guess
no. When I wrote Night People, Tim, I honestly believed, because I was going to deep dive into everything that I could remember from childhood, that I was going to get loads and loads of recall. But there were a couple of things that I remembered, and one of them's just so insignificant it wouldn't mean anything, but it was like a eureka moment to me. Mm-hmm. And how old I would have been, say 6 years old, 7 years old, walking along Church Street in Mexborough. And I think if you've read Night People, you'll know the score. It was a disused blacksmith shop that were partially boarded up, and some boarding were broke away. And I used to climb on these stones that jutted out, about 3 or 4 sandstones. I think the farrier must have used them when he was shoeing the horses. And I looked through and saw what shouldn't have been in there. It were closed, but they were a glowing kiln. We'll get to what you're on about in a minute, but I'm on which story now. So a glowing kiln. There were a green leather sofa that were in my nan's room home at Conisbrough, which couldn't have been there. And there were an elderly lady that came to the window and looked at me, and we were that far apart. And she's looking at me, and I'm shouting my mum, and she wouldn't come back. We were off to the supermarket or Hillard's. That shows how old I am, doesn't it? And eventually I had to leave. When we came back and I looked through it, because I couldn't wait, everything was just blackness. It weren't there. But the memory that came back was running along Church Street as a little boy, kicking leaves in air. So it must have been autumn. So it's no great super memory, that one, is it? But I was just kicking leaves in air like crazy. But that I couldn't remember anything else, really. There were a few things. 1993 when we moved here, and that the encounter started instantly within a week of moving in. Prior to that, it had stopped at about 14, 15 years old. I did remember not just the lights and the spindles turning, looking like fluorescent tubes. I remember seeing the beings, but that's it. So no great flooding back of memories or anything. I think I don't think we're meant to remember any of this. I think as it's falling out of the back of your head as quick as it's happening for some reason, and I don't know why. And we can't get past the firewall that's in front of us to look any deeper. Just like we don't seem to be, we've no idea what it is we're dealing with. Do any of you guys in the chat actually know? And that's not a question or a dig at anybody that says they do. But, I think if you really did, we'd all be listening to you. I don't mean on a podcast. We'd be listening to you, proclaiming it from the rooftops, because you would be showing us the way. I don't think any of us, whether it's the ghost phenomena, the poltergeist, the UFOs, aliens, I don't think any of us truly know what it is we're dealing with. In some instances, do you think the phenomena knows what it's dealing with when it interacts with us? And it's not as daft as it sounds. What do you think, Les?
I don't know. Is it playing with us?
I'm sort of pitching that one in the way that people. There's so many people. There's other people who have absolutely incredible experiences with what they perceive as alien beings,
and very detailed as well, isn't it?
Very detailed, incredible experiences. And I'm wondering if they go into that wanting to have that. And there's other people that have really dark, morbid, terrible experiences. And what if the intelligence behind it, and it is a superior intelligence, but what if it doesn't understand human, and it's giving us what we're giving off is what it's giving us back? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we're just clutching at straws here and just throwing ideas out and hoping that a little hook of something might touch somebody in chat, and he might come back with a bit of information or an idea that just enhances what we're talking about.
Rod is asking, how is a new documentary coming along?
Well, Les?
Well, we'd actually planned to do some filming tomorrow, but unfortunately, and circumstances beyond our control, we've had to cancel that. Yeah. But yes, it's moving, probably not at the rate that we'd both like it to move at.
No.
But that is definitely the feeling we're getting now. But it's not stagnant, put it that way. It's always moving.
I have to hold my hands up that Les would probably want to get it moving a lot faster than me, and I've been the one that's not been moving it along, but not because I don't want to. It's just that, like Les has said, circumstances, a few things happening outside of all this that are just eating into my time at the moment. And but we're moving. It's same way project that I'm doing with Chris Turner. It's slow. I think Chris would hope that it would be faster. But you just can't be everywhere, can you, and do everything?
And while we're talking about documentaries, I'll put that on the screen because we've already got a documentary out. If people doesn't know, anybody new to the stream haven't seen it, tell us a little bit about that, Paul.
Well, it's the documentary, obviously, Wolflands. It's self-explanatory, and it's first-hand witness accounts. Or people who claim to have seen and experienced that interaction with something that just it defies all logic. It shouldn't exist, but I'm absolutely confident after speaking with these incredible witnesses that they've seen and experienced these. It sounds a bit cliche, these incredible beasts. And obviously it's available on Amazon Prime. If you want to buy a hard copy of the DVD, just see me in person and I'll give you one, and just for a tenner or something, and not tell Les. No, if you want to buy an hard copy of the DVD, truthproof.uk, and honestly, if that were ordered tonight, it'll be posted tomorrow. If it's weekend, obviously it'd be Monday. And likewise, the books. Yeah, we did have the books.
Yeah, we did have the books.
The books, they're available, truthproof.uk in paperback or Kindle downloads on Amazon. And if you want to buy them overseas, go to the eBay link because we can use global shipping then. Although I did get an email the other day saying that the shipping rates have changed, but I'll have to look into that one. But that's as it is at the moment. That's as it stands. And I can't really say any more on that. All the books have got great ratings on Amazon because they used to be on as paperbacks at one time, and I took them off. So it's up to you guys.
Tim is saying, thanks, Paul. I definitely will be purchasing Night People when I can. Robert Salas and others say they saw a blue light before his encounter. Was the light you saw blue?
Depends. It depends when you're referring. To be honest, Tim, in 1993 when we moved here, and I were upstairs. There were just myself and our eldest daughter just laid on a mattress on the landing, and I was looking out, not in a bed, it was just a mattress, looking out onto the landing at this beautiful mahogany staircase. And when I woke up, the light were white, and I was saying to myself, "We've painted the spindles white," and I'm laid there looking, and I know we haven't painted them white. I'm not going to ruin a mahogany staircase, natural wood, by painting it white. And I looked round, Sarah's asleep, and these spindles became so white, they looked like fluorescent tubes. That's how white they got. And that's where just while we're in with this, Tim, that's where the memory stopped until writing Night People. And then I realized the memory, I said there were two memories came back, and the second one was this. And they looked like beings just rising up. And I saw them, and then everything just exploded into white light. The blue light, I don't know if Jessica's in, one of my daughters, when Jess finished uni, I don't even know what year, but when she finished uni, she were at a bit of a loose end, and it were at a time when me and Steve Ashbridge were spending a lot of time at Cottam and around East Yorkshire Wolds. And me and Jess went up one night. This farmer had got in touch, and he was seeing strange lights on and around his property. And we were overlooking a field, and these orange spheres appeared, and I'm filming them. And Jess is talking to me about a sphere of light, and I'm ignoring her because I think she's talking about the same thing. And when I finally took the camera away, these orange lights they didn't disappear. They kind of implode and gone. She's on about a blue light that's moving along the crop. I know that's not part of your question, but yeah, a blue light. It's quite rare for us to see blue lights. I'll be honest with you, Tim. I mean, we've seen green. And on the cliff tops, on occasion, green lights, vivid red lights. Primarily, they're orange, but blue, yeah, it's quite rare for us, anyway.
Yeah, and just for those people who might have come onto the stream a little bit late and didn't hear what we said at the beginning, if you're expecting our guest to be on, we have no guest on, as you can probably see, just me and Paul on the screen. Yeah, he couldn't make it tonight. But we're going to rebook. We're going to rebook him out with Paul.
We are doing, because I'm interested in his story, because he's seen something so frightening. It just kept him out of the woods and the forest for 3 years.
Okay, question from Liam. Paul, have any of your investigations led to connections with the Newton-Wald meteorites of 1795 or the area where it landed?
There's a lot of strange things occur, Liam, in that area. And if anybody doesn't know, type in the Thwing. Don't ask me to spell it. The Thwing meteorite. This is what Liam's referring to, and he's spot on. 1795. And do you know what? In 1795, can you imagine? There's a farmer or a farmhand working in a field, and he hears a thing like he hears a crack of thunder and something roaring through the air. And this object, this meteorite, lands. I don't mean next to him, but landed in the field where he were working. It wouldn't have been working if that had landed on him. It weighed 56 pounds, and it's in the British Museum. At the time, it was the second largest meteorite that had ever been found, certainly in the United Kingdom. And obviously, they'll have found far bigger meteorites since then. But there was all sorts of strange stories attached to it. And, Thwing is where St. John of Bridlington came from. He was known as John of Thwing. Why do I reference him? Because we're talking about unexplained phenomena. As a proper saint, canonized, probably one of the last saints to be canonized in what would be known as the traditional way. But why do I reference him? Because he were attributed, I think, to 29 miracles. Now, let's assume that 28 of them are just, we'll kid people on for this. They don't need one to be right. Fabulous, really. It's said to have walked on water and guided sailors during great storms and things. We know that things get distorted and bent and shaped how we want to shape them over time. But I find it fascinating that this area where we're in has got all of these incredible stories and these what were incredible people. 29 miracles, and some of the miracles in his lifetime. People will have heard of John Dee, the alchemist, and how brilliant John Dee was. And, we're going to be talking on last transmission to Mick Park. We've had Mick on here. Have we had him on twice, Les, or once?
2 or 3 times, yeah.
And Mick's really interested in John Dee. What's interesting is John Dee, and don't ask me the year that John Dee passed away or was born, because I can't remember. But there was a famous alchemist who came before him who inspired John Dee. Where's he from? Bridlington. George Ripley, and he wrote the Blossom Book of Alchemy, and he he did the Ripley scrolls, which all can be checked. You'll find these things. But Bridlington, I find it fascinating that this little seaside town, and not just Bridlington, the areas of East and North Yorkshire holds this wealth of a treasure trove of history and mystery. You know, I don't know whether it is now, but in the British Museum, one of they have the top 10 artifacts in the world. And I think at number 9 at the time were the Falkton drums. It's literally 8 to 10 miles away from where we stood now, these stone carved drums. All right, it's not unexplained phenomena, but it's interesting. I think we're probably the most underrated pocket of land in the United Kingdom for its wealth of history. The Willie Howe, the burial mound of Willie Howe. It's probably the most famous burial mound in England. And you've got stories of hobs and goblins attached to Willie Howe, chronicled in the 12th century by William of Newburgh. Present day, you've got strange things happening. I keep citing, is he in, Mr. Collins? And he were in here earlier, and he sat on the burial mound and went and spoke to him, and heard some strange sounds and rumblings below his backside when he sat on the mound, and contacted me and told me about it. You know, so many strange things around these areas.
Okay, I've got a question from Kev Oyston. Hi, Paul. Any update or similar stories about the woman who spotted an alien creature in the back of a car in Farley?
Nothing. I know nothing about that at all now, Kev. It's kind of
just for those who don't know the story, just give us a quick rundown of that one, Paul.
I'd rather not, Les.
Okay, no worries. Let's have a look.
But Kev, you know me, you know where I am. You give me a call anytime you want.
All right then. As this is from Dan Robin Sart. As Paul, any experience at the Rudeston monolith? I can't help but feel it, and the church are extremely significant to the phenomena in the area.
It's fascinating.
Have you experienced anything yourself, Paul, when you've been there?
No. I'd be lying if I said I had. On a night we've visited the Rudeston monolith. I've been with Bob Brown and other people, and you get different readings with EMF meters. I don't mean different meters, but at different times. You go on a night and there's nothing. Remember, we're not so silly that we're going to carry around phones with us and stuff. We'll leave electrical equipment well away, and you can go another time, and the EMF meters are absolutely going daft around the monolith. We took, once again, we'll use the Peter Masters. I think you came with us, Les.
Mm-hmm.
Am I right? And we went to the Rudeston monolith, and he took the laptop. He took the equipment that he was using, quite sophisticated equipment, and it showed on the laptop that it were kicking out 1.6 gigahertz, which I think the next time we visited, there was nothing of any significance. So I don't know how that works. But the monolith itself, what is it? I think it's 28.5 foot. They said there's enough stone, or as much stone below ground as what there is above ground. It was excavated in the late 1800s by not William Strickland, William Stukeland. I get them two mixed up, but that's who it was. And they found a large quantity of human skulls, which suggests it was once a place of sacrifice. Mm-hmm. So, so there's those elements to it. Obviously, I can't even remember the name at church. Is it St. Mary's? I'm not sure. But the monolith does not stand in the grounds of the church. The church stands in the grounds of the monolith. I'm always keen to say that. It's been there thousands of years. There's discrepancies on where it came from. Did it come from Cornelian Bay, where that stone arises? Did it come on a glacial ice flow? Or is it the burial stone of a Viking called Rud, who was said to have died on the wolds? And they said that was his Buta stone, his burial stone. And because there's references to that in a Viking saga in Copenhagen, so it's fascinating. Yeah,
I mean, and just the very fact of where did they bring the stone from? Well,
I can't imagine, Les, for 1 minute that they would have. They estimate it to weigh about 45 tons.
Yeah,
they're not going to put that on a longboat and then actually transport it across land. It seems an impossibility. I think we can rule out the fantasy of it being a Viking burial stone myself, but they call it a phallic symbol as well. It's also known as the Rude stone. not just the Rudstone. Do you know what I mean? People go near it and hug the stone, and it's supposed to be a stone of fertility. I don't want to get pregnant, but you know where I'm going. So,
well, the thing is, what fascinates me, it's a bit like the Easter Island heads, in it. Is we've seen the Rudstone stone as we see it now, that height, but how much is underneath, Paul?
Well, there's supposed to be as much stone underneath, Les, as what there is above ground.
So, because you wouldn't stand up otherwise, would it?
Well, you wouldn't think so, no. And it's brilliant that it's survived all these ages. It's survived the Romans. It's survived everything. It's it's pagan, isn't it? I mean, Dragonborn's in chat. She's probably got more knowledge on it than me. Steve Collin, that's the name I was looking for. Steve, you were the one that sat on the burial mound of Willie Howe and heard the sounds. So that's fascinating.
And I'll just remind you of the Pete Masters visit. I was there, Paul, as you say, and that section, that footage there, will be in the new documentary.
Yeah, and there's more with Peter. Actually, he's rang me today. Pete were really upbeat because he wanted to speak. He wanted some questions for this guest we'd got on, simply because of the location. But we'll try and get it next week or so, Pete. We'll try and do that.
Definitely. Studio 11 Productions. Richard Diol alluded to black triangles had in larger reservoirs. Have either of you heard anything like this?
Well, I don't know so much about reservoirs, Studio, but 2009, when the elderly couple told me about the objects that they'd seen hovering over the sea at Wilsthorpe, September the 15th, 2009, the days and weeks before that, the bait diggers, and just to fill you with, you guys who might not think, what's he on about bait diggers? There's guys who go out with buckets and forks and they dig for worms, these lug worms, what you use for fishing. And Wilsthorpe's a brilliant place to dig. It's a long, flat beach. And they'd seen black triangles entering the sea during that time period. And I've spoken to them. And what's interesting is they even defy the actual possibility of these triangles entering the sea where they saw them, because in their words, if you put chesties on, and they said meant chest waders, you can wade out on a calm sea. You can wade out a real good distance because it's so long and flat. Yet they'd seen these triangles entering the sea there, which is interesting. There's also a report from 2021, I think it's 2021. It's one I've not really talked about much. Myself and Steve Vashbridge went and spent some time there. I was tipped off by a coast guard that a triangle had entered the sea. I got all the times, I got all the dates at Wilsthorpe, and put a Freedom of Information request in and got nowhere with it. And that was 2021. But it's strange that location and the triangles. But as regards large areas of water, such as reservoirs, I mean, I really don't know, Studio. I see there's the possibility, isn't there, you know? But what are they? What's your opinion, Studio, or anybody in chat? Are these man-made objects, or are we looking at some kind of technology from another intelligence? I don't know.
Yeah, and
I was silent then, as though somebody were going to answer me. Apologies.
I've not read any reports of, you get these big reservoirs in West Yorkshire and the Pennines and what have you, and up that area, lots of reservoirs, but I don't hear any reports, and unless people know them on the stream. So
I would imagine, Les, I would imagine that the large bodies of water, I've had objects seen above them and around them. I mean, just last week, might be 2 weeks ago now, we filmed a glowing light under the surface of the sea off Bempton, and I think I got about 6 minutes of footage of this thing. I'd been looking at it for a bit without mentioning it to others because I weren't quite sure. And then as soon as I said, "Can you see that over there?" and I didn't say that glow, we can see it, and obviously got it fixed on. And the great thing with the Psionics camera, Les, it'll tell you if you're pointing northeast. There's a little. And it just slowly moved. Let's say it moved from 2 o'clock right round to
get the degrees,
9 o'clock, and obviously changing. So that was interesting.
Actually, when I mentioned I didn't know of any accounts from reservoirs. There is one actually. It was a YouTube video, and I
Okay.
think the guy filmed it in Ireland. And try and find it, please, if you've not seen it. And it was lots of little lights what had took off, unbeknownst to him at the time. But obviously, like a lot of people, when they get home and review the footage, that they see these things, and that's what happened. But fascinating, what I saw on that video. I think it was in Ireland. If you found it on YouTube, I ain't got a link, so I don't know.
Well, it is one, and I've only got witness.
But that was a reservoir, just to add to that. Yeah.
Witnesses. Well, this into a large body of water. But somebody came to me, and then it's interesting that a few people can back it up. Somebody told me that there was the composition of the land around here is chalk and chalk and limestone primarily. And somebody which is ideal for water courses, and they'll find the way. And somebody told me that there's an underground river that runs out under below Bempton or Buckton. We don't know exactly where. And they said to me that submarines go up this river, and during I think it might have been the Second World War, they were surfacing inland little submarines, and you think, wow, what a load of BS. That you know what And then an elderly lady contacted me because I'd talked about it on a Coast to Coast or somewhere like that, and I'd talked about this, and she said when she was a little girl during the war, her dad didn't have to go to war because he worked the land. Yeah. And this was in Foxholes. They're not Foxholes people. There's a village called Foxholes. And it's probably 12 miles, 15 miles inland. She said her dad took her to an area of water at Foxholes, which was said to have been connected and go out to sea at Bempton or around Bempton. And she watched a little submarine come up out of the water. I don't know any large areas of water at Foxholes, I've got to admit, but that's what she told me. And she said she'd seen it. And then when I talked about this, and there's talk of a steel door in the cliffs at Bempton, and we'll touch on that in a minute and how difficult it would be to get there. Because I know this because I went other week, but I didn't, not to the door. And somebody came on, and when the discussion, somebody else had put up about the steel door and said that they used to live at Foxholes. Oh. And they used to go way out into the fields. And there was I hope this guy is listening because it's daftest things have happened. He said it was almost like a platform, a concrete platform. And you went down some steps and there was little portholes, windows. And from steel cables, there were small submarines, like 1-man or 2-man submarines. I'm not going to say 1 or 2 because I'm not sure. That's what he said. And they knew it was there. And then one day when they went again, and it could have been years later, it was all concreted over. And that's the end of it. So that was interesting. You got three little stories. There was something else I was going to talk about there with this. What would I touch on then? Lost my thread. We did the Foxholes, didn't we? I don't know. It'll come to me. But,
okay, well, we'll move on with another one then while we try and collect our thoughts on that one.
They've gone.
You just lost them. Eleni, Paul, battery drain makes me swear. You might have heard me. And Linny's
I've never heard you swearing, Linny. But yeah, I remember that the battery had drained. This man, I've said it many times, well, that's his true likeness. But I've never heard him swear. That's something he doesn't do. He doesn't swear. And now he's almost like a choir boy when he goes up onto them cliff tops. It's just how it is.
Yeah, and this is a great question.
This is a choir boy.
Yeah, choir boy, yeah. Okay, good question. I think nobody knows the answer, I suppose, but Welsh Rebel is saying, what percentage of people do you think have had an encounter of some sort?
I think it's a great question, to be honest with you. It's one that obviously I don't think any of us can answer, but we can kind of get us head around the fact that when you get under the skin of just about everybody, they've had some kind of strange experience. I don't know about an encounter. It depends what you call an encounter, but some kind of experience. Even the people that say, well, do you know, I once saw a ghost, but I don't believe in them. You think, you know, you what? Give yourself a bit of an head shake there. You know, a lot of people have had experiences, some that they'll never even talk about because they don't believe. It's like my mind's made up, so I'm not going to change it. This has just happened. I think more people than we know. And go on, Les.
Yeah. Where would you draw the line? Would you say, like, I mean, I've had experiences, not an encounter, but an experience where somebody sat on the end of the bed, and I know thousands of other people have had that experience, and you've had it yourself, Paul.
Absolutely, and I wouldn't draw a line. I think we're all on that page. If you know, if you've been laid in bed and there's only you in the room, or you, your wife, or you and your partner, and you absolutely know that you're in the dead of the night, and you feel some kind of pressure come on the bed, and then this slowly creeping up the bed, this weight, and there's either nothing there, or in some instances, you've got what people would call the incubus, succubus, the old hag or whatever, this demonic entity, which I find fascinating because they tell you that you're somehow having some kind of episode, or you're dreaming it, yet everybody's dreaming the same thing or same type of thing, which is interesting. I remembered what it was now. It was the door in the cliffs, but we'll do that in a minute.
Yeah. And just to follow on from that, I mean, to say you felt somebody at the end of it seems like just a bit of a mundane, ordinary thing, but you're really, really frightened. I was frightened when I felt it on the bed. I thought, oh my God, burglar.
Really?
Oh, you know, Paul, don't you? You just know that somebody sat on the end of that bed.
Well, I'm not sure if I told this, if I told the story on here. But I know I told it on last transmission, so there's a good chance some of you guys are going to have heard this. But so I apologize. But for those that haven't, I had one of those type experiences a couple of weeks ago. And Bottom Garden, I don't mind saying it because there's no Tink Garden for anybody to take, but there's a little alarm. So if you did get in, it's going to ring a bell in our bedroom, like as simple as that. And so that we'll do that bit in a minute. I went to bed and I've been sleeping in spare room because I want to sleep in a certain position because everybody knows, or the people in chat do, that I hurt my back before Christmas. I don't want to bring it on again. And I went to bed. I've not been in bed 10 minutes, and little dog sleeps at, when I said bottom at bed, I don't mean on bed, just in room at bottom on a blanket. And I became aware of a weight on bottom at bed. And often he'll just put his paws on and just have a, and so I put light on, little light outside, and he's not there. He's fast asleep. So I took no notice of it. And then all of a sudden, this weight came on the bed, and it was very smooth. I said, like satin or silk that were heavy. And it just went all the way up the bed and over. And there were a sound, like a weird sound. But what makes it even stranger, I instantly began to think I need to go in our room, as in mine and Mary's. Because if anybody breaks into the bottom of my garden, I'm not going to hear that alarm. And Mary has 2 hearing aids in, which she takes out on a night. But we'd only just gone to bed, 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. And she's in the other room. And no sooner had I thought of it than the alarm went off. And the dog just went crazy. He's a lot braver than his size. Mary came out. She said, Paul, there's somebody in bottom of the garden. I said, I know, I heard it. Trousers on. Go straight out. It's all locked. What's all that about? Anybody got any ideas? Because I haven't. But it happened, and that's not just a dream that you've had. That's happened. My wife got up. She heard it. My guard dog heard it. You've all seen my guard dog. He heard it, and so it's crazy. I'm just looking in small. Gary Wilkinson. UFOs are demonic of origin. They are not aliens. You could be right, Gary.
Well, Richard is
right.
What is something that seems to feed off fear? If you're really scared, weird things happen, like going to bed, then sleep paralysis happens. Strange.
It really is, and we're
feeding off fear. I mean, seems like a common denominator here, Paul.
And feeding off fear, Richard, and feeding off energy. It's fear energy. I don't know, but you're right, and it's the paralysis as well. So there's so many parallels and similarities to the alien abduction scenario, where people are absolutely paralyzed. are we dealing with the same kind of entity, the same kind of intelligence, or are we dealing with many intelligences that are all employing the same kind of exotic science, something that's way above our science? Or even if it's not, it might be natural. It might be just some natural ability that these things have. It might not be science as we know it at all.
Conduit 7. Are you visiting Robbie at his Notting Hill home? If so, you're welcome to visit my house, which is a stone's throw away. I can show you UFOs in real time.
That would be good, Conduit.
That's a good offer, that, Paul.
I'm not going to say where, but I will be doing. And you can show me UFOs in real time. I'll tell you what, Conduit 7. Have you got any pictures or footage? I don't mean to put you on spot, but I mean we'd love to see them. But I know what you're going to say that sometimes you get cameras at the ready, and it doesn't perform because true unexplained phenomena, as we've said many times, does not perform to order. I don't know whether Nick's still in from Humby, who we're going to speak to on Sunday, hopefully. But I said, and I've said many times, I wonder, as a researcher or an interested party, because if I'm a researcher, then you guys in chat are as well, because we're all looking for the answers. Les is, Linny is, everybody is, or we're just looking for answers. But what I'm meaning is, if we'd have been lucky enough to find out about a case like Humby, as it was happening, as it was unfolding, do you think it would have performed for us? Going with detecting equipment, going with thermal cameras, going with heat sensitive equipment, I don't think it would. I think it would have just upped its game and moved, and I don't mean moved location, but it almost like at Skinwalker Ranch prior to the new Skinwalker guys that are there. And I'm not saying that they're not doing a brilliant job at trying to detect the phenomena, but I think Robert Bigelow, they hit it with everything, absolutely everything, and not just me thinking, oh, we've got a few £1,000s worth of equipment. We're talking probably millions, and they still weren't able to catch it in it. It were always one step ahead. And I thought about that with Humby. I thought, can you imagine? It's a researcher's dream, but it probably wouldn't have performed because it knows. And do you think it knows because it's intelligence, or do you think it knows because of our intent? There's a difference there. The people in the forests who don't believe in Bigfoot. I've shot in these forests for 30 years, never seen a thing. And then that day that they do, and they lift this gun up that's capable of dropping a moose, so it might drop them. People say, obviously knows a gun. What if it doesn't know what a gun is? What if it just knows what human intent is? What if it can feel what's going to happen? Do you know what I'm saying? I hope it makes sense.
Yeah, and
might not make sense to me.
I'll move on because there is still a few questions. We'll let people debate that one in the chat.
We're only going to do an hour, guys. Shall we? Do you want to go over?
I'm good if you're good, Paul.
Okay.
And it'd be not nice to not read out some of these questions. So here we go. CDAV 555. What are your thoughts on the Ilkley alien experience?
Well, Les might know more about it than me. I know that the photograph was taken.
Yeah, I think we're just going by the photograph, aren't we, on this one, as you say, Paul? I think that was very credible. I'm thinking that was a very credible, yeah. And it was it some man or some figure of a man some distance away from the photographer up ahead on the trail, which was a little bit windy, which some people had to fill me in on the complete story. I'm only going by what I remember of the photograph.
The only thing I remember is like a hazy or a grainy picture of what they perceived to be an alien. Yeah. And I don't want to discredit that, because the people that took the picture, let's assume that they're on the level. Imagine how crushing it must be if you've taken that picture and you've been as genuine as you can be and you've put it out, and then you've got people going, I personally think it might have been fake. Could well have been, but we've got to give them the benefit, haven't we, really?
Yeah, my gut feeling, and I just go with my gut feelings a lot of times. And like yourself, Paul, you get that gut feeling. I think it's pretty much there on the ball. On the money. Yeah. So that's where I stand on that one. CDAV 555.
Before you go to the question, because we were talking about the river allegedly that runs out under the cliffs, Bempton, Buckton, Speeton, under the sea.
Yeah.
And then there's also allegedly a door in the cliffs that used to lead to the old RAF base. And people, I've spoke to some fishermen, not just one, who've said that they've seen it. They said it's there. Remember, there's a lot of rockfall. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, some of these rockfalls, I couldn't believe it when I went up there a few weeks ago with Andy Barmby. We're talking cliffs in the particular area we were looking that were 400 foot. And there's an aluminium ladder hung over the sheer cliff, an aluminium ladder, and then it goes down to an absolutely steep bit with a rope where they get themselves down. But my point in question, I went to look at an old submarine, and I don't know whether it's worth putting on, guys. I'd like to do, even though we're a subject, we usually use the subject of unexplained phenomena, but I filmed the submarine or the remains of it. We're only looking at skeletal remains. Imagine if you were looking at a carcass, you're looking at bones, but it's there. So I think it'd be good for you guys to see. And it took us ages to get to it, traveling over boulders, a boulder field. Mm-hmm. And Andy said that's cut-off point. If you go beyond there, you'll get cut off. And then obviously you're not going to drown, but you've got to wait for tide to recede before. But the submarine was before cut-off point, but it was a hell of a trek. So what I'm saying is, Andy's been there fishing between 40 and 50 years.
Yeah.
Mick Sigson's been fishing it longer. There's hardly any rock anglers that go beyond the cut-off point. And the ones that go beyond the cut-off point and head towards Buckton, they're still not going anywhere near where this alleged door is. So that's the difficulty. I mean, I found it really hard going. I couldn't take Dog. Dog couldn't have managed it. You're literally going over great big boulders as big as cars, and there's drops between them there's a little gap at top and space at bottom. And if he dropped down there, that's it. You're not going to get him back. So, there's no way you're going to get an out to remove them. But anyway, so if this door exists, what I'm saying is there's no wonder only a handful of people have seen it.
Would this door, though, be easily seen if you were at sea? You were close to the coast?
I don't know, because of the rock falls. There's rock falls that have just... You imagine it could be behind rock falls now. And obscured. I don't know.
And the other thing about this one, because like these reports go back years and years and years, wouldn't any metal door which was built into that side of the cliff, wouldn't it have rotted away over a period of time, do you think?
It depends if it's military. I mean, we're looking, the submarine landed on the beach there in 1921.
Yeah.
I think it's called the H3 or the M3. Somebody correct me. And... It washed up there in 1921. I think there'd have been a lot of that submarine still there if it weren't that it was just broke up for salvage. Mm-hmm. I spoke about it the other week, and a guy bought it for £1. £1. And then blew an hole in the side of it, took the motors out. I think the engines are still there somewhere, the Vickers engines, below, buried in the rocks and the sand. But there's still quite a bit of the submarine there, So I don't know. And the boilers, there's a huge ship's boiler of the Diamond, and there's one of a ship called the Laura, and I got them mixed up. I don't know which one's which, if I'm being truthful. And then where we do a lot of observations, I see Martin Abbas is in 1423, Mark Worrells, Chris James, Scotch Mist. Let's have a look. Tom Waters, the Tactical Badger. I love these names. So, but where we do a lot of observing, there's also a wreck of. There's a deep channel, and Mick Sigson says in the channel there's the wreck of a ship called the Radian, but we can see its boiler on extremely low tides, and it exposes what looks like a gun. So it's fascinating. There's loads more to it. I find it all interesting, not just the unexplained phenomena.
Okay, then. Patrick Daniel is saying the remains of the Silver Saucer was discovered in the London Science Museum in 2008.
They weren't, Patrick. And great guy, Patrick, as well. I've met Patrick quite a few times at Bempton. He had one of the most incredible experiences Patrick's had. Patrick, you might not want to do it, but I'm sorry for putting you on the spot, but consider coming on and sharing it, because it blew me away, and I was with him when it happened. So, the remains of the Silpho saucer were discovered. I wish you'd have been on the last transmission other night, because I couldn't remember where they were discovered in the London Science Museum. I said it was some. I didn't know where I said it was, but I knew they'd been discovered 2017, 2018. So at the London Science Museum, and I think Dr. David Clark was doing a talk. So forgive me, David Clark, if I get the technicalities of this wrong, because I'm put on spot here, but we know where it was now. Yeah. And a guy, and I can't remember his name, one of the curators came out with a box of bits that said flying saucer pieces. Didn't say Silpho saucer, said flying saucer pieces. So they're opened up and they're looking, and they're from the same time period. So, Patrick, we're on the money. It could be remnants and fragments of the Silpho saucer, but it never said that. And that's what I found interesting when people want to be so accurate about things, that bit weren't added when the report went into the newspaper. They might not be the Silpho saucer. It doesn't actually say it is. It says flying saucer pieces. And from when looking at the pieces, I didn't really see a lot of copper in there either. But as I say, could they have been the Silpho saucer pieces? They came from a collection, I think, a military man's collection, and they'd been donated years ago, and they were just in storage. And I think it was just relevant that this man who was doing his talk, who'd got not an interest, an avid interest in UFOs and unexplained. So this guy, I wish I could remember his name, came out and showed him this box of things, pieces, and they thought they'd found the remains of the Silpho saucer. And I'm not saying that it's wrong, Patrick, but I know it was never actually said categorically this says Silpho saucer. Yeah. But they were keen to jump on it that they'd found them.
And while we're talking about the Silpho saucer, and you did talk about that, we were up there filming up there as well. We actually talked to some people who live in the village, and I think there's how many houses? About 12 houses.
About 12 houses at the top of Silpho Moor.
12 houses in this little village called Silpho.
Oh, I'd love to live up there. Apparently, in the winter, during the heavy winter, it just gets closed off. It's cut off, and all you're looking at is that high up. You're just looking at the tops of forests. It's idyllic. I mean, me and Les were filming at Silpho. Sorry to bore you with this, guys, but it can't put a smile on my face thinking about spent a beautiful summer's days up there when I was with Les filming, and this elderly couple in a house next to where we were filming came out wondering what we were doing, and we ended up talking to them, and they invited us into the garden where turns out they watched Howard Hughes, The Unexplained, which were interesting. And from
the husband knew of you though, didn't he?
The husband did, but he didn't know who we were talking to when he first approached us.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure. I don't think they said they'd seen lights or anything, did they?
No, the son had seen lights when he came home from university.
But what interesting now, the researchers of the day, I don't mean 1954/57 when the flying saucer allegedly landed. I'm on about in the 70s and 80s, researchers revived the case and wanted to look into it. Mm-hmm. And there were a lot written up in UFO magazines and lectures at conferences. But me and Les were the first people, there were only 12 hours as they remember, and we did some door knocking, that had ever asked anybody at Silpho Moor about the Silpho saucer. What's that tell you about the research? Seriously.
Yeah, and well, that's it. And what it tells me as well is that, like, over a very short period of time, a lot of these stories, if they wasn't documented originally, they'll all be lost, won't they, over time?
Absolutely. And they can be bent into whatever shape anybody wants and create the narrative that anybody wants. I'm firmly saying that I'm not ruling out that that's fake. So somebody really clever could have created that. But I just think it was poor research. If you're gonna start somewhere and you're gonna research something, then go to point of origin.
Now, just put me right on this. I've probably got it wrong, but yeah, I'm sure you'll be quick to correct me. Did you go in search of the solicitor who had an office in Scarborough, and to see if it either was still alive or practicing or anything?
And all I found was an elderly solicitor who knew him. Yeah. And he was of the opinion that the Silpho saucer is still in Scarborough, in somebody's possession.
Really?
So that's interesting in itself. And an interesting funny here. It is a bit funny, really. We were pointed in the direction of someone who might know a little bit more about the saucer, a property up on Silpho Moor. So we did this bit of door knocking, and we traced this man down who came out and spoke to us, and he'd got some scrapbooks of all sorts of events and strange things at Silpho. Can you remember, Les?
Yes, I know. He brought them out.
and he said he had a relative who, this guy was elderly. I'm talking probably in his 80s, And he said he had a relative who used to visit when he was from a teenager, excuse me, from a teenager to a young man, who just used to sit in the back bedroom window of this property, looking for the lights that he could see in the forest and things, which is fascinating. If you've got 12 properties and you've got nobody interested in UFOs and unexplained phenomena, it makes you wonder how much is occurring around that place. It looks over onto Broxer Forest. It's got incredible views. And what was funny, this here's a little story for you guys. I'm not going to name anybody's, but me and Les wanted to get access to the church. You remember this? Les is laughing now because it's just stirred the memory, hasn't it? So we're talking to this guy and he's showing us these scrapbooks. And we said we'd like to go into the church because there's some interesting carvings in the church. There's a Saxon cross that's got canine type feet carved into the bottom of it and things. And in view of the film that we were making, Wolflands, we thought that would be interesting because we couldn't get access to church. And he listened to us, and that was that. Then we goes down to the church again because we'd already been and it was locked. And we met a couple in the churchyard, an elderly lady and a daughter and a granddaughter, and they were sat having sandwiches. And we said we'd like to get into church. She gave us a phone number. She says, this guy's got the keys to the church, didn't she? This isn't, kid you not, this is how coincidences happen. And so I rang the phone number, and it were on it bloke that we'd been talking to who had no knowledge of how to get into church with scrapbooks.
Yeah. But we made it plain that we wanted to be down there and in there.
We told him, yeah. Obviously, he didn't want us down there, did he?
Obviously not, because we never did get access.
We never did. And I've asked several people as they've been passing. Son-in-law lives close, and I says, if you're ever passing, and he's called a few times just to see if it's open. I says, we want some pictures. And there's also some carvings in there called miscords. I think I've pronounced it right. I think there's 3 or 4 ancient wooden carvings. And they put them below seats. There's a name for a seat that they put them below in churches. It's a poor seat, but that's not the word. But these carvings, they look like monsters. It's really interesting. So I just wonder the influence and why people would do things like that in an area. You know, Silfo. When you go down into the bottom of Silfo, you're in a place called Hackness. And I got a report from a former postman from Hackness, which is, again, is a tiny village. And he came home one day terrified and said he'd seen a wolf. And, this is the postman at Hackness, just in the village. And we're not going to say that there's tons of traffic passing through Hackness, because when we were there, we could park car up and stand on road doing filming and that. These are pretty sparsely populated areas. And there's also the report of a guy driving home, and he took the scenic route one night through the village of Hackness and through the roads of Hackness. He'd just left the village, and he said he came across what looked like a monstrous cobweb over the road that were just hovering over the road. And we're not talking about something in mist. He says the strands from it were as thick as washing line. And he ran into it, and it puffed into mist and filled his car with the smell of what he said smelt like. I think he's talking about ozone, but he said it smelled like candy floss. Yeah. These little stories are just crazy, and I just find them fascinating. And we've also got the story at Hackness of Saint Hilda, who also had visions and saw angels and all sorts of things. All that's written there. She became the what's the name? She was in charge of Whitby Monastery. Abbess, the Abbess. I think that's what it is. Yeah. Somebody will correct me. Okay. Not Abbas, as in Martin.
No. And Jan and Andrew. Jan had a remote viewing experience triggered when a family member was very, very upset and distressed. Then 2 more for no real within a few days. Yeah. And then none. And sleep paralysis just after. Weird.
But Jan and Andrew, you make a good point that it's when we're in these different emotional states, I believe, that we're tapping into the unknown other. Or do we tap into it? Is it here all the time? Is it sat on the peripheral of our consciousness, just waiting for us to slip into some other state? And I'm talking about things I've spoken about many, many times, but at the time of a bereavement, and you're concentrating on the loved one, not even intentionally, you just think they're fixed. It's in your mind. A lot of people claim to see them. a lot of people claim to have strange experiences, and there's no doubting that it's the state of mind, and I don't mean you're imagining it. It's the state of mind that you're in that's allowing you to break through to that unknown other, in my opinion.
Yeah, and okay, I'll move on just because we've got a few more questions, Paul. Dragonborn John D was of Welsh descent, born in July 1527, died in poverty in December 1608.
Thank you, Dragonborn. I knew Dragonborn would know the details on John D, and that's kind of you. And John D was the guy that used to, amongst one of the things that he did, I think he used to look into these obsidian mirrors, the black stone, the obsidian, and that'd be fascinating, wouldn't it? What do we see in is it the mirror? Do you actually is it the stone that allows you to see things, or is it just the suggestion that you can see things and then the mind does all the rest? And I don't mean you imagining it. Once again, we'll jump to the Ouija board. Is it the board? There's no magical properties to a board with letters on it, but you've already planted the seeds in your mind that things are going to happen, and it happens. The crystal ball. It was a piece of crystal.
I mean, when a Ouija board was first developed, it was a kid game. It was sold to kids. Yeah. So as you say, it can't be just the board.
No, I wouldn't think so. I think I think we all kind of underestimate the incredible power of the human mind and the emotional state that can allow us access to these other realms if we want it. We don't all want access to some other sphere of existence, do we?
Right, Kev Oyston. We'll have to have a catch up soon, Paul. I'm due for a visit on the cliffs soon. We'll bring Phil.
Yeah, please do, Kev. Yeah, that would be good. Yeah. Okay. And I didn't ignore your question deliberately, Kev. I do have my reasons for that.
Okay, Jacques Willow. When you sense that silk energy going over the bed and the alarm went off, do you think you picked up on an energy that was checking you out? It didn't expect you to feel it, so it caused a distraction.
Could be, Jack. It's a good point. And when you say, I don't think I felt a silk energy. I felt the weight, and it was so smooth,
like a wave.
It was just an applied pressure, but there was no friction to it. But we're only playing with words there. But I don't know if it caused a distraction. Why? Obviously, if it caused a distraction, it also made me think of that alarm, because that's what I started thinking of, and then it went off. So I don't know.
Okay, and thanks for the question, Jacques.
And we know Jack's been on the stream, and look forward to talking to you again. Thank you.
Hey, Roscoe is asking question, Paul and Les. Now you have filmed and heard the main encounter in Wolflands. Have you thought of anything new which comes to mind? Any other links or thoughts from any other encounters?
As in,
thought of anything new which comes to mind?
I assume, unless correct me if I'm wrong here, that maybe you're thinking everything's going to be forest and woodland based, like it was and on the coast in Wolflands. And yeah, we have come a little bit out of the woodland setting, and we've got some accounts from suburbia, some in people's homes, which are fascinating, aren't they, Les?
Yeah, to be honest, correct me if I'm wrong, Les, I don't think you're actually asking about what the new film's going to be consisting of on this question, but it's true what Paul is saying. Yeah, we've come out a little bit, and we've gone into other areas, what we're looking into as well.
It's hard to know where to start and where to stop. Do you know? I mean, because it would have been easy with the amount of reports that there are to have just done something very similar to Wolflands, but just trying to mix it up a little bit. And there's some reports on the coast as well, which we obviously did in Wolflands. But these reports that sort of infringe on suburbia and actually in people's homes are absolutely fascinating. Here's a question. Oh, Lee, £20. You didn't have to, mate. Thank you very much. That's really, really good of you. That's so kind of you. Let me just. I want to ask Les a question. So when you started getting involved with this, we know you've got an interest in ghosts. We know that the hauntings and the ghosts interest you, but you come into this just talking to me and interviewing me about my interests and what I were about originally, and then things progressed, and we started making Wolflands. When we jumped into Wolflands, what were your initial thoughts when you first started, before you started with the witnesses?
Yeah, well, just to fill in a little bit of a gap there, my interest initially was in the ghostly type of apparitions, reports, the Bowley rectories and everything like that. But then I did start to listen to Coast a few before I came across you in 2017. And then obviously I picked up on alien abductions, animal mutilations. So it was kind of a natural feed, as it were. Yeah. So when the cryptid stories came and we had these accounts, then everything seemed to meld together, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Or it was like an extension of what I've already been researching myself. And so it didn't come as a shock, but I was just totally intrigued and fascinated by what people were prepared to tell us in this film and to come on camera, which is, in my mind, Paul, is a very, very brave a very brave thing to do.
Absolutely. And you know, for the new documentary, I mean, and all the witnesses, I mean, absolutely brilliant so far. UFO related, cryptid related, but just recently we've been working with an elderly gentleman who lives in East Yorkshire, and what he's seen, and he's so articulate and so on point with what he's talking about. What he's seen absolutely defies explanation, and he came out into the field with us, and he's looking at it really in a scientific way due to the nature of his job, because he's literally twisted his head around a little bit. And when you get talking to him, which we have done many times, myself and Les, he's not got any more tales of the unexplained to tell us, which tells you something in quite a long life. You know, it's a good one, isn't it?
Yeah, and where he lives is in a really good place, geographical speaking, because obviously these are the areas that you've had numerous reports from, and
absolutely
and like that. So you know, who knows what he may see in the future, Paul, on that one. Right then, so let's have a look. Thank you, Lee, for that question. And Tino's put me right on this one. Thank you, Tino. There's black triangles have been seen hovering over reservoirs up on the moors and Todmorden and other Pennine regions. You are correct, Tino, and this is what inspired Richard D. Hall to put the trail cams up. Obviously, because he'd had numerous reports from that area. So you're right there, Tino. Yeah,
it's fascinating, isn't it? And to think, Tino, I know you can't answer me straight away, but am I right in thinking then that they've been seen entering water and leaving water? If it is, there's no difference to what they've been seen off Wilsthorpe here in East Yorkshire. But why certain areas? You know, why just one area of the East Yorkshire coast? Why aren't they seen in other areas? Or they probably are. It might be just the fact that people haven't been lucky enough to see them.
Here's a question for you then, Paul. When we call them, I don't know, a new term from USOs, and they enter the water, do you think they enter the water and just stay under the water, or do they actually go in the earth beneath the water, Paul?
No, the subsurface, below the surface. Well, it's a possibility, isn't it? I said this other day, and you imagine all these great areas. We're on this blue ball, this molten rock, and we're on crust of it, living on the outside. So there's a lot more inside. So it's possible that there's intelligences, there's life forms living below the surface of or the crust of the earth. And what's to stop them entering the sea and living below the surface of the seabed? Yeah, but you know, and you look at these vast areas, and we think of ourselves as the size of a postage stamp compared to Russia or Siberia or you know, places like Australia. But then you consider that, and I said it the other day, the 71% of this ball that we live in is water. It's covered in water. That is 29%. land.
Yeah.
So the potential for some other intelligence to exist is absolutely immense below the surfaces of the oceans of the world. I think,
Yeah, and probably these USOs, which you kind of are saying is that there could be entrances under the bit at the bottom of the sea to get under the rock and into the earth.
But do we need entrances, Les?
Yeah.
And I don't want to sound like trying to fit an answer into everything of what you've just said, but the former hairdresser who lived at Filey, and she amassed lots and lots of accounts and stories from people who came into the hairdresser shop, policemen, fishermen, not just ladies. And she talked about the police officers coming in to have their haircut and saying that they were chasing a UFO in cars that were flying, and it went straight into the side of one of those huge gas tanks and just disappeared. Didn't crash, didn't damage it, just went into it and disappeared. So if she's on the level with what she's saying, or what the police officers told her, then we might not need entrances. If I'm on the level and saying that these beings as a child entered our home, they definitely didn't come through a door or open a window. Do you know what I'm saying? And the more I think about it now, and I used to sort of dispel this, I used to say I'm not saying that there's something underneath the ground at Speeton and Bempton Cliffs, but the more reports that I keep getting, the guy who told us the report of seeing the red sphere seemingly just appear from the cliff and go down and then split into two, the guy in 1998 who I spoke to face to face, not a telephone conversation, telling me he saw these balls of light just come out of the cliff. And it was immense with a red light on top, and then they retracted and seemingly went back in. And I, at the time when I spoke about it, I says, I'm not trying to say in any way, shape or form that these things are somehow entering the cliff, but I don't know. I really don't know, because if these things can kind of dematerialize, the guy who watched the figure on the beach at Hornsey, he watched this figure walking along the beach, stood up to rest his legs because he'd got a bit of cramp, not because he'd seen this figure, and it just pixelated out of existence. Yeah, I think everything's on the table.
Probably is, and like what you say, I mean, when you read reports of these Mount Shasta in America and all that, where they see the lights do they actually disappear into the side of the mountain? Do they actually go through I don't know, a dark cave or what? And,
it's difficult, isn't it? I think Steve Stockton's the man to share that with us. That's the Brown Mountain lights and things. I'm not certain.
Yeah. And then you've got the Starland lights, which is the mountainous area be out there as well in Nepal?
I don't. Do you know, Les? I don't know.
Yeah.
And we've had Carl Tusher on, haven't we? And he spent some time at Hestal, and maybe we should get him back on and see what he's got to share. Yeah,
because over the years there's been there's been people trying to work out where these lights are coming from, and they've been doing it for years, Paul.
Well, I don't think I'm going to get to the bottom of it, but it's great fun just observing. We say many times that the bulk of the time, I would think 90% of the time, maybe more, you're not even going to see or experience anything in these locations. But it's that percentage that's a little bit higher than other places that makes it worthwhile going.
Okay, just while I remember then, I've just got to thank everybody for the chat. And I know you mentioned Lee Roscoe earlier.
No, apologies to anyone else. I didn't see it.
Yeah, Karen Beeman, Joe, Jack Willow, and Tia. Thanks for the donations always.
And thank you, because we didn't really come prepared tonight, I must admit, guys, because I were really looking forward to speaking with Harley, who were going to share these incredible experience that he had in this forest. And I'm going to get him on. We've got to do this.
Mark Worrell is asking, do the werewolf accounts coincide with full moons, or are they actually dogmen?
Well, do you know, Mark, I think we're on it. Somebody said this other day. Well, somebody emailed me actually and said, he says, Paul, you talk about the Flixton werewolf. And does that not imply that you're talking about something that morphs into something else, as in lycanthropy? And I think we need to jump away from that. totally. Even though that we're using the word werewolf, I don't think there's much. Me personally, I don't think there's a difference between what we're looking at as regards werewolf and Dogman. You go onto some brilliant sites around the world, that talk about these things: Sasquatch Chronicles, Dogman Encounters, and a lot of the people that talk and give their accounts just say, "I thought it was a werewolf." Yeah, I think we're just dressing it up. I think this is just a new name, and you're right. I don't think there's any correlation to the moon either, or silver bullets. This is all things for movies, and but it might be the fact that in times gone by, when people have reported seeing these things, they've seen them by the light of the moon. Otherwise, they wouldn't have seen them. I don't know, but I don't think the full moon has any great influence on whether you're going to see these things or not.
Okay, and
remember, I don't know. Sorry, Les, I'm cutting through. I'm not the expert here. I'm same as you guys.
Yeah, I mean, 99% of people know the name werewolf, but a lot of people don't know the name Dogman. Do they really? If you approach anybody in the street, they'd say Dogman. I mean, I've approached people when I've talked about this subject, and they just don't know what the hell you're talking about.
And which is interesting, because they know the word werewolf because of the films going back from the Hollywood 50s films, on to now. Yeah. But the words Dogman probably is not older, but the dog-headed men do go back thousands of years, hundreds and thousands of years in time. They really do. And I don't think people call them dogmen as such, or werewolf as such. I think the werewolf came up. Do you know what I mean? So it's interesting. I think that the name was cynocephali.
And
for the dog-headed men.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, but one they depicted in the drawings of the pharaohs.
Well, you'd got Anubis, and I think there's one of the saints that's also depicted with a dog's head. Did I really say cynocephali? I didn't think I could say that, What did I struggle with the other week? I needed that elocution lesson. I couldn't say it.
Yeah, well, it seems as if you've had that elocution lesson. No,
you nearly missed it then, Les.
I nearly missed it, but I got there. Cavo Eastern door portals in the cliff face, startlingly similar to the Welsh Triangle story from the 70s. A large craft seen going into the side of stacked rocks, which is out to sea.
Kev, I remember that. As in, I don't remember it, but I remember reading a little bit about that. And I think
it's witnesses. That's the great thing about that.
They were witnesses, and I'm trying to think of the name of the book. But I do remember that. And weren't on stacked rocks, didn't they actually see white figures as well? I think they did, which is interesting. And interestingly, now we're talking about rocks. The same lady who talked about the spaceship flying into the gas tank. I don't know what's the word for these things. Gasometer, when they flew into the gas tank and disappeared.
Yep.
She said she was also walking along Filey, along the coast at Filey, looking out onto Filey Brig, which juts out into the North Sea. It's about a mile. At high tide, this were famous for wrecking boats and a lot of ships come to grief. But she said that she saw a vehicle, which is impossible, but it looked like a vehicle. There were windows in it going along Filey Brig and then to the sea. And anybody that's not been to Filey Brig, if you get down onto the brig, you're jumping up 4 foot onto rocks and platforms, and there's no vehicle that could do it, and certainly not going to sea. So what they saw, I don't know. Well, that's another story from that lady. It's fascinating.
Okay, and Draco is saying, if it is always one step ahead, then we can't be causing it, because how can we project knowledge? We don't know.
We can't be causing it if it's one step ahead. It's you make a good point, but what if it knows? It's almost as though I'm moving goalposts here, Draco, and I don't want to appear like I'm doing that. But if this knowledge of the unknown other, let's face it, nobody's got to the bottom of what it is that's interacting with people. As far as I know, nobody's solved this conundrum. So what if it knows? What if our lives are mapped out? What if it knows what we're going to do at any given time? What if it knows that if this Les Drake or Paul Sinclair or Draco is going to be on this road in 2027 at 3 in the morning, and nobody else will be on it, and that's the time that we're going to visit this person. I don't know. It's a difficult one, and you make a great point.
Okay, just at this point, I'll just do a little plug for our friend Chris Evers, Outer Limits magazine, who's got running a conference this year. I haven't got a poster. We haven't sent anything through, but I know he's got some couple of guests already mentioned. So if you go on the Facebook page, Outer Limits magazine, you might get more updated info. And that conference will be held just near Hull in Cottingham. Cottingham.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
No.
So there's so there we go. A little plug there then. Let's have a look then. We've got a little bit of info. The Ilpimo witness was a police officer. It certainly was.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So
I think that's what kind of sealed it with credibility for me. Do you see where I'm going, Paul? Because, you know, I don't know. It did seem pretty much really man-manned. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right then, 1423. I've got some more footage for you, Paul. Not the smoking gun you often referred to, but it's unusual and only visible on the psionics, pitch black, and its behaviour rules out most aircraft.
Fabulous! So 40, and would it be possible? Would you? I'd love to look at it, but would you be willing to let our viewers have a look at it as well? And if so, yeah, I'd like to show it on here. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Well, you're one of our viewers, but it's got to be you've got to ultimately give the permission. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, sure. Martin Abbas, if you're still with us, Martin on the stream, thanks for coming in. Now, in a newly made Pope, what are your thoughts about what the Vatican knows or thinks about the phenomenon?
Interesting, isn't it, Martin? Absolutely. And I think I don't know what I said to Les or Chris, you know, when the Pope passed away. Are we going to enter the age of miracles? Are we? I don't know. You know, even Easter Sunday when that he passed, it's fascinating.
When it was reported, Paul. Yeah. So we don't know if he actually passed on that day. It was Easter Sunday. Yeah.
You know, but I don't know. And newly made Pope, and I saw the news. I don't even know the name of the newly made Pope.
I can't say I'm up to date on that one. No.
But I did see. I knew it had happened because I saw them speaking on the news about it, but I didn't really take a lot of notice. I was too busy sort of thinking, God, what we're going to talk about tonight, because our guests just give backward.
Well, yeah. If you want my instant reaction on this one, just gut feeling again. I just don't think it's going to make one eighth of the difference as regards disclosure or talking about this subject. I wouldn't have thought so.
No, okay.
On that one, yeah. I don't know. Would the Pope be involved in disclosure of any kind, Paul? Do you think?
I've no idea. Obviously, if there's truth in what they say, and the Vatican have got a vast archive of knowledge of miracles and unexplained phenomena and strange occurrences, then it could be. It could be sort of influential in disclosure, but are they going to show that? Are they going to give us any of that? One of the miracles of Fatima that was sort of kept from the people, is it still being kept? I don't know. And I see the real Wayno says this is the 13th Pope. Well, you can see my knowledge on that. And yeah, moving on.
Yeah, and what was I going to say? Right, talking about disclosure, right. Here's an hypothetical question for you people on the stream and you, Paul, kind of. If we got disclosure in whatever form it was, whether it was a UFO landing on the White House lawn or whatever, or the governments came out and said, yeah, this is for real. So my question is, we know the effects it could have on society as a whole, but you as a person, what effect would it have on you personally? Would it be, without going down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories, would it mean that everything that you've learned, like a conspiracy theory, what's come true, if you know what I mean? How would it change your life, do you think?
I think it'd change a lot of people's lives because, I mean, I wouldn't be jumping up and down and saying, "See, I told you." Definitely wouldn't. But it'd be validation for a lot of people about. Some people maybe, even on a personal level, would come out of the woodwork who've been sat on really strange and traumatic things that have happened in their life, because suddenly there's the truth, the reality of the existence of these other intelligences would be there. So that would be life changing and almost like a weight lifted off some people's shoulders. It depends on the consequences or the actions of the beings, because ultimately some government, some superpower announcing the presence isn't going to alter the balance of what's happening in the world, unless they're going to announce that we now nobody will have to work ever again, because I don't know, I don't mean there's free money, but this has just altered the world. An energy that we once paid for, an energy that we once mined for and worked hard for is no longer, we don't need that anymore, because the visitors have provided us with all this knowledge and all of and this technology. But that's not going to happen, I don't think. And then you've got the other side of the coin where, say, America is on the verge of disclosure. Do you really think it is, people? Come on, give your heads a shake. If it was, then it would be doing it, because it's almost like stabbing a spike, a flag, and planting it into the moon and saying we want to own this. Because don't you think other countries around the world, China, Russia, would want to be at the forefront of that? So then you've got these. It's almost like insiders within insiders. So because if this happened and China announced it, have America got some super plan, some fake sort of news that they've got disclosure? Who would we believe? We don't believe what we're told now. As fast as these agencies, as fast as governments and presidents and the top people in the world are telling us things, they've got more lice queuing up at the back of the teeth, just ready to roll more out. And we're all fools. We all just fall for it, hook, line and sinker.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I agree with you. And also, but just to add, say if you was in a profession, a bit like an astronomer, looking through telescopes, and all this news came and it's been reaffirmed. I know you say you don't need a government to tell you, but then how would that change your attitude and relationship with the work that you're doing as an astronomer? You say something like that. That's just to take one profession. What if you're a doctor and everything you think? Well, everything I've learned in over the past 25 years it means nothing. I don't know.
You'd still need doctors. You'd still need treatment, unless these other intelligences were going to give us some kind of advancement that could cure illnesses. You'd still need treatment. But the bigger question, Les, is why do we need these people to tell us? Are we so weak that we need people to tell us?
Yeah, I think my question was more sort of like down the line of what would it do to you as an individual? You've gone through this, you've gone through that, and you've realised now that it wasn't this that you should have been learning about. It wasn't this what you've been taught, and everything's turned on its head. That's all I was coming from. Really.
I think you'd have to bend and adapt, wouldn't you? You'd have to do, because if you were faced with
as humans, we're kind of survivors, aren't we?
We'd have to adapt and adopt or migrate to what would become the new religion. Seriously, one all-encompassing religion. But that time's, I'm talking like I'm making a sweeping statement here, and I've no idea, have I really? But I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that, Paul, actually. Right, we're moving on now back to Dogman. Have you guys had any reports of Dogman pups being seen?
No.
Question that, though, isn't it? Really?
No. Yeah. I'm sorry to say that. Well, I've only got the Bobster. I'd like another one, He's the only Dogman in my life. He's absolutely fabulous.
Is he sat there with you, Paul?
He isn't. No, he isn't.
Oh.
But he's been with me today.
Yeah.
He comes everywhere with me. He's like a little shadow. I love him so much. I just do.
Sorry, Draco, about the answer to that one. We've been talking about Paul's little doggy here. So,
Yeah.
right.
Oh yeah, but well, great question, Draco, because it gave me a chance to talk about the Bobster.
The Bobster is always features in most of your walk and talks.
Oh, he's just amazing.
Right.
It makes me so happy.
Lee is asking question, Paul, would there not be any images and write-up of the steel door in the library?
No,
there references in the library, Paul?
I've just gone through that library and I've gone through everything that's Bempton related. I've spoke to people who worked at the RAF base, and some have said, yes, it exists. Others have said, I worked there God knows how many years or whatever. I was stationed there in that year and I never knew anything about it. I don't know personally whether it does, but I've spoke to people who've said they've seen it. And now I've been down under those cliffs and realised the difficulty. There's only a few tides during the year that you could actually get anywhere near that. And I've seen these rock falls that literally come down at 45 degrees. Anything could have covered it up. And then again, Lee, all we're talking about is a door in cliffs, aren't we? You know, it's not like we're talking about some entrance to another world. It's, you know, alleged steel door in the cliffs. As Les says, wouldn't it have rotted away? Well, these boilers from the shipwrecks that are over 100 years old are still there. And the bulk of the ship is out there under the sea somewhere. You know, as the boilers have probably just broke away, and it's because they're a big circular object. They've sort of rolled and found their place.
I think I've met some of these boilers when I used to go nightclubbing in the 70s.
Have you really? That's for another channel.
That's for another channel, yeah. Okay, then. Steve and Colin, Agnes Low North Camp was a former army training area during the Second World War.
Yeah, spent some time there, Steve. It's a great spot, and and Les has been to Low North Camp a few times as well, haven't you?
Yeah,
and
it's quite an expansive camp where it must have been when it was on the go.
Absolutely, and that's in the it's in the bottom of what's a place called Barnes Cliff, and the River Derwent runs through it. And we've sort of been all over that area and around it when we were filming Wolflands. And great, absolutely great spot, and very, very remote, as you know, Steve.
Dragonborn, clergy were not supposed to sit down during services, so they cheated with these tiny, intricately carved shells to pack their bombs on.
And what did they call them, though, Dragonborn? There's a name for them. It's, you know, like we in ancient times, we talk about people as being paupers and poor. There's a name for those seats. I can't think what they are, but underneath the seat, there's these carvings, and I think there's 3 in Hackness, and the carvings are called miscords or miscoids. But what's interesting, there's one of the Green Man, which you know could be the Woodwose, which I find fascinating when we're in this area where we've made a film called Wolflands. There's one with a carving that looks like it's a Bigfoot's face, and there's another one that's grotesque. So I just found it interesting that they're in this church. That was part of the reason myself and Les wanted to get into the church. And this man we spoke to, when we told him we'd like to get into church, said, "Oh, I don't know how I could do that." And then an hour later, we rang him up.
Weird. But right,
if you're watching this and it is you remember.
You remember it.
And what was funny is we went to Silfo Moor probably 2 months later, and it's a winding road. They call it the Windings because it's that steep. They have to wind like a snake up it. Yeah. That's how steep it is. And and it's only single track with a few pulling places. And we pulled in, and this guy passed us, and it was him. Do you remember?
Yeah, it is really terrible that in the winter as well. So they say, and you don't get your Tesco delivery on time.
Oh no, you'll not get that.
Right then. So Draco is asking, in Wolflands 2, will it be concentrating on what they may be, or will you stick with sightings reported? Well,
I think Draco, you know, we have to consider what they may be, but you know, we simply don't know, do we? I mean, I'm assuming that you've got an opinion on what they are. I've got an opinion on what they are, but it doesn't mean I'm right. And as many witnesses that has come forward and tell you about these things, some will tell you that they believe it's some flesh and blood creature. Some will tell you that they believe it's something else, something other. I just think there's a lot of attributes to these things, these creatures, that take them away from a standard flesh and blood animal. Could be wrong, though. I like leaving myself a get out clause because at the end of the day, I really don't know.
Well, it's one of these subjects where if you did want to nail your colours to the book, then it's almost impossible, Paul, isn't it, really?
Well, we've got a report in Wolflands, and without going into detail, this thing came from the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
And he watched it come from the ceiling. And I'll not describe it or go into much more detail than that, but it were a wolf. And it came from the ceiling as he's laid in bed. If Les has spoke to the man, I've spoke to the man. It sounds as genuine as you guys. And you could say, well, if he's talking like that, he can't be genuine. But seriously, these are the comforts
down to
of
earth, man. Down to earth as you can get.
Yeah.
Dragonborn is saying St. Christopher is
St.
the
Christopher,
with the dogs.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
The cynocephali, I think that's what it was called, weren't it, Dragonborn?
I hope I haven't skipped any questions here. I've got to go scroll up. Right, I've got this one from Tina. What was this one? Oh, thanks, Les. I've not heard of triangles being seen entering or exiting reservoirs, only hovering over around them. But that's not to say they don't use the reservoirs as entry and exit points.
Yeah, thanks, Tino. Thank you.
Yeah.
And seeing as you're on, Tino, I see thumbnail of your dog. I hope he's still with you because I remember seeing you on cliff tops with dog, and good to see you in here.
Brilliant. Scrolling down a little bit more, see what we can pick up. So don't forget, folks, please, if you're not subscribed to the channel, by the way, we found out that half the viewers who view these podcasts are not actually subscribed, so it would really help the algorithm.
Mercy seats. Thank you, John Doe. I knew there were a word I was looking for.
So if you
miser cords,
okay,
or mercy seats.
So I'll finish that. If you're not subscribed, please do so. It helps us immensely.
I got a bit excited there when I saw that.
Yeah, we're at 14,000, I think, on the count, and we'd like that to grow a little bit. And just for those who like numbers, we only get 6% of our viewers are from America. So if you are American or this gets out to America, please just give us a little bit of help there and give us a like and a subscribe.
Yeah, and I won't say all of the reason, Les, but part of the reason, like years ago, before we started with the channel, I must have done certainly up in the 100, if not hundreds of podcasts and radio shows. And I never used to talk about the books or the website because we didn't have it, or this YouTube channel. So I have started doing, what's this? Power off, don't you bother. No, I have to say that. It won't let me. So if power goes off, don't blame me. For some reason, it's saying power off, automatic standby. Don't do that.
Oh my gosh. Well, we are nearing the end of the show, so whether you've timed it for that, I don't know.
I've not timed it for So what I'm saying is I have started doing more. I did one a few weeks ago called Through a Glass Darkly, and I did 2 shows with him. I wrote it down other day, Beyond Belief on 25th. That's quite a big channel, that one. So I have started doing a few more. I should have done Katie Page on her channel the other week, and that one my fault. I didn't do it. So apologies to Katie. So we've rebooked that one. And so I'm last person to talk about somebody giving us backward, aren't I? So I will be doing more, and I'll be doing the bigger American ones again, because I do get asked, and I've just been kicking them into touch. I've just not been bothered because you get saturated with it. You feel like if you tell something on a channel and then you repeat it, you think that they're just doing same old. But I do hundreds of stories, not just one story like Rendlesham or one story like
you cover a multitude, don't you? And let's put this question out there to the people in the stream. I mean, a lot of people that come regulars on the stream and they know us pretty well. Let's put the question out to you. Why do you think this podcast? Because we're just talking about this Truth Proof podcast. Why does it not reach American audience with a subject matter which we know interests them?
I don't know. But like I said, you put it out to people, they might just tell you because it's boring.
Sorry, because we kind of get feel frustrated when we see the YouTube figures on it. You see, so
well, I dropped some books off at somebody's house in Bridlington who ordered books other day.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know them, but it was literally a mile from my home. Says we've just been watching you on Gaia TV.
Yeah.
So we're hitting an American audience, and I didn't even know they'd got someone on Gaia with me on. But you see, I've done stuff for History Channel and things, and I don't really watch much TV, so that it must be just permeating and getting out there. So we might end up reaching a wider audience.
I think Lee's going to give us our last caption of the day. Remember, this Sunday evening, 7 p.m, Truth Proof special with Nick about Humby.
About Humby, yeah. Nick will be, hopefully, guys, Nick's going to come on and share a few of his experiences at Humby back in the 96, 97, 98 period, because you've heard me talking about it. One last thing before I hand it over to Les, because we've just about run out. Well, we have run out. Sunday, an hour, myself and Les talking with Nick about Humby. Tuesday, jump over to the last transmission for myself and Chris. And other than that, I'm going to leave it to Les. And thank you, guys, because we were only going to do an hour, and it's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, thanks for the support, even though you knew at the beginning of the show that we weren't having our guest on. But we've managed to pull it off, Paul, and get 2 hours, and great questions in from everybody in the chat. Great.
Absolutely.
Great
Thank you.
So with that, then, we'll see you Sunday, won't we?
We will.